Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 180 of the AFCB Podcast. Well, you can hear it. We're talking in English. Normally, we are talking in Dutch. Why is this? Because the topic of tonight's podcast is a little bit more broad. It involves people from all over Belgium. So we can do it in Dutch. We can do it in Dutch or French. It'll be a little bit harder. But we choose to do it in English to, keep the middle road a little bit. So everybody will probably understand, because the topic that we podcast about is American football, which is prime English. First of all, welcome to everybody watching this live. You can give comments on Facebook. You can give comments on YouTube. We can see it here in our stream. If it is relevant, then we can discuss it here. Just have a look at it and discuss it. You are following live with a few of you already, so I will introduce the guys who will be podcasting tonight. And it's a full crew actually, because of the topic a little bit. Everybody is a little bit involved. I don't know how the screen is organized at your home, but I will start top left here. Lawrence, good evening.
Good evening.
Lawrence is our from AFCB, a little bit our resident barbarian reporter, I think. Didn't you go to Spain once?
I did go to Spain with the Belgian Barbarians playing against Spain in 2016. So that's quite a long time ago. A lot of players still playing or coaching or having a team. Guys like Nick van Ee, for example, are still playing then.
Yeah. All right. Top right is Robbe Pieters, player for the Brussels Black Angels, but tonight he is in his he has his AFCB hat on. Robbe is our resident, let's say, BAFL reporter. He goes to the field sometimes on Sundays, possibly also when he has played on Saturdays. Good evening, Robbe.
It's been a while. Good evening, Dirk. It's been a while since I've been able to do that, but hopefully soon again.
Yeah, and then now bottom left is Rijn, co-commentator, sometimes with me, sometimes with other guys on the BNL. We love to do that, by the way. Good evening, Rijn.
Yeah, good evening. Absolutely, I love to do it, and season's not over yet, so this Saturday, AFCB will be present in Isegem.
Yes.
Behind
someone else is in and out of the podcast. I see that's Frans Heuvik, of course, living legend of football in Belgium. Very experienced, in his opinion. We'll see if he wants to join, yes or no, and then you might hear him. What's the topic of tonight's podcast? The season is over. Normally, we podcast only about the NFL, college football, a little bit on the football in Belgium and Holland as well, but we chose to do a hiatus until August. Normally, there would have been overtime podcasts, but we haven't seen any of those yet.
No, we're on a hiatus as well. We're waiting for some juicy stuff.
No, but the last few weeks, there was a lot of people who asked us about information about what's going on with football in Belgium. And we kept this at bay a little bit for the time being, because, we are not directly involved, of course, in the teams. We are not involved in the BAFL. We are not involved in the BNL, although we are there every Saturday. You have, of course, probably seen a lot of stories on Instagram. That's about the only source of information so far, which came from Jabari Harris. But we want to talk about it a little bit tonight and put it a little bit wider. Let's say we want to talk about the future as well, and we will give our opinion about how we see football in Belgium evolving, how it might be better. That's a little bit how I see it. I don't know, you guys, is this more or less correctly phrasing it?
I think it's a good resume.
Yeah, that's a good rundown, I think.
Yeah. There has been a lot of the problem a little bit with us is that if we want to inform our viewers or our listeners, we have to know everything, so that we don't spread just gossip or half-truths or lies, maybe. I think it's just sometimes it's too dangerous just to spread some information that we're not actually 100% sure of. And just like you said, Dirk, we're on the outside looking in. We're not involved in anyone. where we're independent, as they say.
All
So it's just better to just to collect everything and then talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
people-
how do I see the podcast evolving a little bit is, of course, we have BNL here in Belgium, we have BAFL. We'll talk about both a little bit, and then we'll see where it goes. And in the end, we have, let's say, our own ideas of improvements which can be done. Of course, the season is not over yet. We realize this might be early to do this, but it's on topic right now. I think people are asking questions right now. And I think the time might be right. We've waited quite some time. We are a little bit volunteer journalists, so it's somehow a little bit our duty to inform us.
Yep, that's what I wanted to say. I mean, it's not that we didn't want to talk about it. It's finding the right space to do it, having the right information about it. The last few weeks, it's not like we didn't know anything, but I think you have to do it the right way. And I think having a conversation about it and just opening up it a little bit more the way we want to do it now, I think it's way more than just reacting to it right away. We're not journalists, like you said. I am in my
You are.
work
I am as
life.
well.
You are as well as a so.
Me too.
But yeah, we have to make sure that we put it out the right way. But yeah.
Okay. So firstly, we'll talk about the BNL. And what I want to say off the bat is the BNL upped the level of football play in Belgium and Holland, for sure. The moment I saw, a lot of BNL games, we saw things on Belgian and Dutch fields which we haven't seen before. And yeah, this will be one of my conclusions for sure. There are certain teams which have to play each other every year, no matter what the competition format will be. And we'll focus on Belgium first. And we'll start with the positive, let's say. Brussels Black Angels are a prime example for me, and that's not because Robert is here and that he has my wife held hostage somewhere.
Jesus, Dirk.
Going dark. No, I think BBA is a good example of how it should be. They joined the BNL, I think, in the second year after watching it for the first year, when in the first year there was only Limburg Shotguns, and back then, was it already Nitros? Might have been Tribes back then, still the first year, I think. And you'll hear some certain things a few times. The Brussels Black Angels have a stable coaching staff. They have a good staff around it. They have, and this is the most important thing also, they have homegrown players who come up from their own youth teams. That's like a third thing, which is already important. And the players come back year after year. Robert, that's true. I think I've seen a lot of the same faces and names on player sheets.
No, I do want to say first of all, encore, that still that I will be talking as myself. I'm not talking as any representative on the team. This is completely as AFCB and as a fan of the sport locally, and as player of the sport locally, but just not linked to the opinions of the team might have. I do have to confirm what you say, because I joined 3 years ago for my first season, and I have been seeing the same faces over and over again. You become a small family, and it's like it's a lot of times the same people, and it's a really enjoyable thing as well to play in, because you get really good connections with the other players around you, and they do keep coming back because there is a good atmosphere.
Yeah. By the way, I forgot. There are a lot of people already giving comments, so I want to say hi to Peter, Yves, René, Thomas, Vincenzo, Elias, and Yves. We will get to your questions later. Also important for me, every time I see teams warming up, when I do, and Steven also, when I see teams warming up, for me it's already important. How many guys do they have with them today? And BBA, they put about between 40, 45, 50 people on the roster, I think, and on finals, if it's in playoffs, I've seen them go from the 50-yard line almost to the end zone if they line up. So they have a very big recruitment ground as well, and this is really important, I think, to grow a stable team. You have Brussels, of course, there with 1 million people, a lot of young guys, a lot of guys from different backgrounds. I think some American influences, but I don't see it in BBA. If I'm correct, Robert, again.
I think this season we have one American player, and the only reason he is with us is because he works not too far away, and he wanted to play football, so he decided to come to us. So there's no real looking for imports. It's more of we work with who we have, and I think that's been going quite well in the last few years.
Yeah, and well, for me, it's always a pleasure to watch BBA play. The only knock I have to say is accommodation. Or the fields where they play at home is sometimes a surprise. They might have been the city of Brussels' fault more than the BBA, I think, that they cannot provide a decent stadium for playing football. I think this is also something where I don't know who has to do it, but lobbying for decent football pitches is something that really needs to be done in Belgium.
You're immediately talking about a stadium.
They have a decent football field with some stands.
But that's the bigger question. Stands, but you have to start at the base, which is football pitch. I understand the question or the need for stands, but you have to start somewhere. And an artificial turf with the American football lines on it, with the yard markers, that's a good start. It's just that the stands are needed, I think. For example, if you want to join the BNL, one of the needs to join the BNL was you have to be able to provide a live stream, and then question of stands is there.
Yeah. Or as we experienced in Rotterdam last weekend, you have a good football field, not 100 yards long, okay, but that doesn't worry anybody, I think, really. And they just put some scaffolding up for us. Props to the Trojans. We were high up, but we provided with a good stream. Thanks to Stephen, by the way. So I think Brussels Black Angels are an example. And if there are enough teams, they should continue playing in the BNL. But that depends on if there's going to be a BNL next year, of course. Let's cut to the elephant in the room. The Limburg Shotguns. They were a startup team for the BNL. And this is the prime reason why we're doing this podcast tonight, is because a lot of things went south with this team this year, sadly enough. We watched this team evolve from the beginning. Ren, you as well, I think.
Yeah, I think the first time I got in contact with them was right in the beginning, in 2008, 2009. They played on a, I think it was still property of Belgian defense, of the military, next to the barracks of Leopoldsburg. I still remember it very vividly. It was just like a deserted pitch with a track and field around it, and very, very small dressing rooms to try and house 20, 30, 40 players. It was very charming. Those were the good times, I think. I even joined them for practice like a couple of times. After a couple of practices, I was like, no, my body can't take it. So I started just taking pictures and just watching the sports. But they've been around now for, I think, 16 years. And they've evolved. But too bad where they're now.
Yeah, of course. What's been going on the last few weeks is they started forfeiting games after stories came out about situations of this year and years past. We spoke to some former players, some former coaches, or coach who represented the players, and as it seems, over all the players, the volunteers, they left the team for now. So it's a really, really sad situation. And how did this come to pass? I mean, the Shotguns were, I think, the first year of the BNL, they were a good team. They played with a Belgian quarterback, mostly Belgian players. Okay, some came from far away in Belgium. but they competed with those players and
Didn't
reached
they
the
play
finals.
finals?
Yeah. Because remember, this was when we had the game day with the desk.
Yeah. Well,
Good times. Good times.
The finals was between Shotguns and Crusaders, which was still a pretty close game.
It was an even
But
game.
I think it went wrong a little bit last year when they wanted to repeat this run, and they started getting foreign players and import players. And this is for me the biggest knock on what's been going wrong. And it's not only in the Shotguns, apparently, where you, as a small competition, still import players from the United States. It throws it a little bit there's a wrench in there for me.
Yeah, but just to start off, those are players you have to pay, you have to house, you have to provide for. Homegrown players, they live at home. They just take their car or bike. They come to practice. It's a lot less hassle if you work with homegrown players, even if they're not maybe as good as the import players. But that shouldn't matter, I think, in a small country and a small competition as Belgium, where you have to grow organically, not by attracting.
Vincenzo says, okay, they always had Americans. That's true, but the Americans which played there before, they were mostly employees of the Air Force base, or somebody who was a former employee, I think, of this Air Force base in Kleine Brogel. Give me the name of the star running back again from that first.
Jason Taylor.
Jason Taylor, a very talented guy.
Great
he
guy.
lived in he was just living here in Belgium. I mean, it's he was an American, but he's not imported just to play football here. You don't have to house him because he has a house.
Those guys now that came in were provided or were supposed to be provided with an apartment, a flat. So it's just going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost, time to do stuff like that. So it's a risk they took, I think, that didn't pay out the way they wanted.
No, Belgian and Dutch teams, they shouldn't do this. It's like boxing above your weight. Vincenzo says here, Jason Taylor is married to a Belgian woman. You see, that's a good guy to get on your team. I mean, he's going to be there at practice. He doesn't have to drive that far. And Andy Brutijn here says, if we want to grow, we need to invest in more youth. You see, the teams that do a lot of that are most healthy. Okay, that's very true. And again, a knock on the Shotguns. They didn't have a junior team.
Yeah, I think.
They started with
there's something you need to realize as well, is that I would advise everybody to read the book Playing for Pizza, a book by John Grisham, who normally writes books about mysteries and murder things. But Playing for Pizza, it's about an American quarterback who has run into trouble in America, and then he goes to Bologna and he plays in Italy. And it's an amazing book, but it also shows that when American players come to Europe, they also need to do their due diligence, because in essence, when you're an American player and you've played on some level in college, when it's over, it's over. When you're not in the NFL or when you're not in the CFL, there's a couple of opportunities still, but for the rest, you can actually keep playing if you go to Europe or to another country, and you can then become the star player in no time. But what you also have is that there can be promises made or whatever, but I think you also need to stake out the situation. You need to figure out, or you need to actually talk to people or go and see a couple of teams, because I can only imagine that even if you're paid well and you come over here, that for an American player, it's very surprising to be at some practices where there are 15 people or 18 people showing up, or 21. And I know that is still sometimes the case in teams, even though they're in the BNL or when they're playing games, there's lots of people there. When they're practicing, it's not always up to snuff. And then for an American player, if you then come to a country that says, or to like Belgium, and we're going to pay you, or We're going to make sure that you have housing and all that stuff. I mean, you're jumping a little bit in the deep end, and that is something that can be avoided if an American player would have some knowledge, or people could just school them on what actually the situation in Belgium is, and then they should go to how the top team in Belgium is organized and how they look and how many people they have and what their facilities are, and then go like, okay, and maybe see a game and then understand what they are going to be starting,
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's not like the Belgian American football is nowhere. I started a team in the late 80s. What you have now in Belgium, I mean, you cannot understand what it is. And it all has to do with the fact that teams actually have youth programs. And from having the youth programs, that's for me the biggest difference to the 90s and the early aughts. And of course, what you have to see is that we always have had people within the organizations who wanted to have a team, own a team, be involved in a team, but also to win, and sometimes win at any cost. And that has happened a couple of times, even in the 90s, in the early 2000s, that sometimes people just, jump to that and then import players or pay players, but then players just see that it isn't there or that it is not sustainable. But yeah, then on the other hand, taking money from a team where you see that almost everybody is just doing it for free. Yeah, you have to understand that then the team might be happy that they have a top player, but then suddenly you're thinking, hey, I made a bigger contribution than this guy and he gets paid. And it's a strange situation to be still developing and going towards something and thinking that we are a league that is able to pay people, except if you have a mecenas in your team.
Yeah. Well, then it's also a little bit, most of the teams, they work with their own guys. And if you start importing players, then it's not cheating. But it's just, not a level playing field anymore for me. Even the ELF in Germany, we saw some teams in Germany, they have to have, I think it's over 90% homegrown players.
Yeah.
You can only have like 6 or 8. I don't remember.
The ELF has the player base of about 53 people on the active roster on game days, including a maximum of 4 American players.
Yeah.
And a maximum of 6 European players that are not from the country itself, which means that a team like the Wroclaw Panthers, they need to really find the best teams in their country, find all the best players from there, and then find them.
And even those guys, they don't get paid a whole lot. I mean, it's not. I think only one player can make a living out of it on a whole ELF team, maybe 2.
Yeah, I interviewed the first MVP of the ELF. I forgot his name.
The Ryan Fighter quarterback?
No, the very first one. I played for the Raiders, Tirol Raiders.
Austria.
He's now
the running back.
No, he was.
I know we did an interview with him. No,
an interview with him. Yeah, I still have forgot.
I remember
name.
Jacob Johnson, but I'm not sure if it's him.
Yeah, Jacob Johnson was the fullback for the Raiders. So, but he basically was working for the team in some sort of way where he was getting paid.
Yeah.
But he was never actually made a very good living off of it. So it's always going to be one of those things where the guys that come here, they're not going to do it for money. They only can do it for the love of the game, because otherwise you're not staying here. And I think with the whole import players, and that's always going to be a tricky situation, because you never know what you're going to get as a team as well.
No. And then, of course, things went off the rail when one of those import players got hurt, because that's one of the things. And they had some problems with insurance. And I have to say, not insuring your players in American football,
lightly stated,
is borderline criminal.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it. I mean, it's not snooker here. We're playing. You can get seriously hurt. We see it every week. And if someone is messing with your insurance, my God.
They're just messing with your health. And even, for example, the player that started everything, started the storm. I think Jabari Harris got hurt last year, and apparently there were issues with his health insurance, and everything exploded. And now apparently practically no one was insured.
Yeah.
The Flemish side of none up until a couple of weeks. None of the players in the Flemish teams were insured.
Yeah, and this of course has to do that the Shotguns management is also involved in the FAFL. One of the problems that there are too few people involved, and it's always the people who are also involved in teams. So they have all the power to themselves, and that's never a healthy situation. I think as always in business and sports, if you have somewhere where money is involved, you need a 4-eye principle.
At least.
And it shouldn't have a relationship as well.
Yeah.
So it's always 2 people, 3 people who should go over the financials, or and something that's also now being asked in the Shotguns team was that players should get representation in the board.
An NFLPA or a BNLPA.
Some kind of PA. I don't know if it has to be BNL or something, but this is apparently not the case at the moment. And one of the improvements that surely teams can adopt is that players need to be represented in the boards of teams and probably also in the national boards. So they know what the hell is going on behind the scenes.
I think the national boards, especially, maybe even more, I think, than teams, because I think in teams they know a little bit more because they're there all the time. I think having representatives in the board of the different leagues that we are in right now should be something we should do. I think the same thing happens in the NFL, where players are just are part of certain negotiations with the NFLPA. It should be like that in Belgium as well.
So we're talking about players from each team that form some sort of PA.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
You basically could have a vote in every team and say, well, we send one of our representatives, one of our players, into the board or into whatever federation we are in right now, with the FAFL and BNL, all these different things, where you'd have in the case of the BNL, like 5 extra guys, and that's 5 extra guys that don't necessarily have to be doing all the management, but at least there would be some sort of representation. People would know, the players would know a little bit more, I think. So player representation should be something that will have to be a part of the future, I think.
I think that's something we can take out of this whole situation. So we
it
try to
shows.
stay focused on some positive notes which might come out, or lessons that need to be learned. And Andy Bertijn, this comment is a little bit too long. My apologies, Andy, to put it on the screen, I think, but you say that
On the screen, I mean, we won't be
that if you have international players, you can get a extra insurance for them, because they don't have insurance here in Belgium. If you have Belgian players here, they are insured by their own insurance company, like we all do when we play sports, I think. But then if something happens, I play in an amateur soccer team myself, and we have this kind of insurance for whatever the hell rests that's not covered by your own insurance. So
maybe just to round it out, just so people know, Andy Bertijn, he is the head coach of the Junior Barbarians, if I'm not mistaken. So
he knows.
He knows.
No.
He's not some guy, and he's part of the youth that we were just talking about.
But I think let's like round up the Shotguns thing. Like what to me went wrong there is they wanted to force winning a title without having the necessary players on their roster, their basic roster, local players mostly.
Yeah.
And they had to find a quarterback in Finland with Jabari Harris. No knock on him. You had to find a coach who lives in Amsterdam with Coach Lewis. Jabari had to travel from Finland every 2 weeks or every week. Coach Lewis had to travel from Amsterdam. guys like Nick van Hey, although it's not the same. I think he didn't play for them last year anymore, but he also came from Westland. There were guys from really far away. To top it all off, there was a running back who allegedly was a torturer torturer for a drug ring. I mean,
we can't really blame them, of course, for that being.
Last year there was attractive football being played by them. That's no knock on that, but I mean the basics were not there to develop a steady football organization, and that's the common thing which we have to take from this. If you want to grow a team, look around you, start with youth players.
There is no shame in starting only local guys, because that's how a club can grow, to me.
Yeah, and if you don't have a stable base, you're not getting anywhere, and it's always going to be the same thing that happened. I mean, Frans can attest to this. I mean, this has been happening for years and years and years in Belgium. You're always going to have people who think that they can grow it just in really big steps, or they can do it for their team, and they don't always necessarily have bad intentions, but they're going to be, this should be a lesson of, hey, this is happening again. It's not like this has never happened before, where a team is basically, or a management, I think we should say, is overshooting ambitions, and is getting in a situation that is literally, I mean, right now they're in legal trouble. That's what we've been hearing. We don't know necessarily what everything legally is being, investigated or whatever. We don't know that because that's not our place to talk about that because we don't have that information. We're not, like I said, we can't check it like a just a journalist could do that. No. I mean, that's literally one of the things you run into when you talk about legal issues like this. But yeah, I think just the way it is right now, it should be a lesson about what happened, and you can be super negative about it and just start to really lay out everything about players not being insured, about certain players apparently having terrible living conditions, let me put it that way. But at the end of the day, that's not going to help you any further. That's not going to help the sport any further.
On a short window, it helps your team maybe win a league, but the next year they're gone. I mean,
in general, just in this case, in this podcast and what we do, it's not going to help anybody if we don't take any lessons from it, and that's why we have this conversation, I think, as well. Try to have it a little bit more openly.
Also, I think one more thing that we forgot to mention is if shit hits the fan like it did in Limburg, and Vincenzo is here, Klaas, my apologies, is in the comments as well. They didn't release their guys when they wanted to leave the club, and this has been going up until I think IFAF got involved. So the International Football, is it association? I don't know. And they finally released them.
IFAF overruled them.
Class, I always got that wrong. Sorry, Vincenzo. And I think some players, they got released now and got to sign contracts with other teams, because there's a lot of spring football still going on, and some players deserve to be on a football team.
It would be a shame that a lot of people or players would lose their passion for the game just because of this situation now in Limburg.
Yeah. See, so Vincenzo is one of the guys who got a contract somewhere else in Germany, I think, somewhere.
Cologne Crocodiles, I think.
Cologne Crocodiles.
That's a team. A lot of.
And Baptiste Taals here says the insurance problem is more complex than that. Don't you think? Yeah, probably. But we're, like we said before, we're not internally. We didn't have a look at all the details. But any issue with insurance should not occur. I mean, that's one of the starts. I mean, like I say, I play in an amateur football soccer team where players sometimes puke right before the game, smoke a cigarette during halftime. And one thing I know for sure is every year everybody is insured.
I think the last time that someone puked during a game, Derek, that was you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Years ago.
It's a long time ago. No, okay. Elias asks here, yeah, he lost his insurance. It was his first year ever playing. I
think he's talking about the love of the game, not the insurance.
Yeah.
That he lost that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I hope it's not both.
Temporary. Yeah. I hope it's temporary.
But okay, and then the general, of course, also what we need to take from this is, one guy should not rule everything in one team, because for sure you cannot handle everything yourself. You're gonna forget things willfully, yes or no.
I think transparency and honesty and communication, those are those are basics for any club, any organization, any team. So it just baffles me everything.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a sad state of affairs. I mean,
because they have an awesome field.
They have. It's one of the few teams where always a lot of people in the stands.
Yeah,
cheerleading squad during every break. Volunteers on the pitch, next to the pitch, doing the sound, manning the bar, they can ask €5 for spectators because people show up. Other teams, they say, okay, come for free because otherwise nobody will show up.
And I think that's one of the sad things about it. They have all this accommodation. Now we don't know what that's gonna be like in the future. Hopefully I can come back or remain with volunteers coming back. I think one of the things we have to mention as well is right now we don't know what the future or what the BNL Bowl will be like. We don't know where it will be because there will be a final of the BNL at some point. But we don't know where that will be. It was supposed to be in Limburg. It was supposed to be on the Shotguns field. Because of all the issues that were happening, because of certain financial reasons as well. Turns out it's not going to be there anymore. So hopefully we'll have some news.
I hope so as well, because it's
later, because
it's still the best place in Belgium to watch football, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Maanstadion is, you can't say it's an awesome stadium, but it is because of but like, it's very old, it's run down, but it's pretty cool. Like, it's still cool. Like, you can't sit on one side of the field, but it's
they're in the process of renovating the entire thing. Last year, or I think last year, the artificial turf got put on, so there are now lines for hockey, soccer, and American football. They're fixed. The lines for American football. So it would be a damn shame if there wasn't any American football in the future.
Yeah. Okay. And I like this comment here by Vincenzo. Like we said, right now, a former player. All I can say is, aside from the president, I loved playing in Limburg. The people were amazing. People helped out with a lot of for free. But it needs to be managed well. I think that's a good way of putting it.
That's
like I say, I know a lot of guys involved who do the sound, who did some electricity work at the stadium. A lot of volunteers were involved there. So it's a shame if it would all go away. But it seems like it's not possible anymore with the current managers. If some new guys take over, it might not even be under the same name, but I just hope I get to watch some football again one day at the main stadium. Okay, let's close that Shotguns chapter, and I want to go over the other Belgian teams a little bit, because other things happened there as well next to BBA. The Castile Nitros, they were one of the founding members of the BNL. But we heard that last Saturday they played with 18 people. And I first of all, I love the Nitros organization. They have everything in order, in my opinion. They have youth teams, they have volunteers, they have a nice stadium, they have a nice field. But the BNL level is so high. And that's one of the problems of maintaining this league at the current level, I think. With a few teams having so many good players around. Is that it's probably above their level. If they do this year, they use local players. They have used French players in the past where they could keep up with some teams. I've seen some competitive games out of them. So I don't think there's a big problem with the Nitros. They have a good sponsor. They have good financials. They have everything in order.
Yeah,
The biggest problems that the Nitros had this year is actually very simple. Is the fact that the age restriction or the age gap for the youth changed. So normally it was under 19, and then everybody had to go. Like if you're above 19, normally the players would go play for the senior team. Whilst last minute it was decided that the junior league is going to be under 20 next year. So that means that a lot of those young guys who were supposed to flow into the team decided to stay for one more year with the junior team. They won the league last year as well, as the Easy Game Trapped Youth Academy. And I think that was a combination of this plus a lot of, exactly like has been said in the comments, a lot of French players who did decide to go back to their teams because it's very close to the French border as well. So a combination of those two made it so that they don't have enough players, but they have one of the better organizations. You can see that when you go there, there's many people running around everywhere, making sure that's a great thing. There's even like a small place next to the field where the kids can play, and there's usually a bouncy house, and there'll be a little football stand so you can kick the ball through. It's a great organization, and I don't doubt they will be coming back. I don't know what level, but just this for them this year, it has been a tough time.
Yeah, I think they had some issues at the quarterback position. They started with one of the players who decided to go somewhere else in the BNL.
No, he got hurt. I think it was with you, Laurens. We were commentating
before that.
That was the third guy. I remember talking to the head coach. They were supposed to have someone who decided to play somewhere, who was practicing with them. It was going to be their starting quarterback. He decided to go somewhere else where he was getting paid more or just being paid. I don't know. But he decided to go away. Then they were supposed to have one of their young players step in and be the quarterback. But then what Robert just explained, that didn't happen. And then they had someone, they had a French player, and I'm not going to name his name, remember? He had a very, very long name, but it was...
we abbreviated it.
It started with Rafa, and I think it was maybe 3 or 4 drives in, and he blew, I think it was his Achilles or something.
I think he broke his foot. Oh my God.
Broken his foot, yeah. So he was done for the year as well. He was there for like 3 or 4 days, literally. He had to go to Ewout Nuitens, who's an offensive lineman. So that just says everything. So they had issues, but like we said before, I mean, they can fall back to a base. Like they still have that stable organization. So having the issues that they had this year is not going to hamper them in the future because they still have everything set up just the way you should, like we talked about. So the youth teams will still provide input player-wise. So
they can become one of the best teams in Belgium if these youth players continue to grow. So
yeah, absolutely, and because of just the way they're set up there as well. I mean, they have a good, like you said, Robert. They have a good field. People are. It's a nice thing to be there. You can just. It's fun.
It's one of my favorite places to go as a fan and just to go watch the game. It's great.
Yeah, it's just fun. So if anybody's from West Flanders and never seen a game, it's something you should do.
This Saturday, 6:00. Be there.
That's right.
Maybe one more question I want to ask about the Castile Nitros. And it's a shame Frans is not here anymore. But in the 90s or early nillies, they formed one West Flanders super team.
That was before. If I'm remembering correctly, it was the West Vlaanderen Tribes, and then it was Austin who decided to make a new team, who became the Austin Pirates, and then they had the two differently.
So, I mean, I know Ostend is playing in the BAFL, and they also have youth teams, so I don't think there's a big problem there. But could they create one super team again? Because roster size is.
I think they don't need to.
Bruges Broncos, so you have 3 teams there.
No. I don't think they need to because both organizations are working well. Both organizations are doing what they're supposed to do to really make a team grow. So I think that for the next few years, they have been a stable value in the community for the last, 15, 20 years, both teams. And they will continue doing that as well.
Yeah, and apparently they don't like each other.
Close by rivalry games are always tough. I saw it in the junior game last year. It was quite hard, but very respectful.
And I think in Austin, the local government, as you say, is also investing in like new I think buildings or accommodations there as well. So they're set up. They have like an actual.
I think they have a lot of sponsors.
They have a lot of sponsors. Something they're doing very well.
Yeah. I mean, the Castel Nitros. I mean, the reason why they're called the Castel Nitros is because of their sponsor.
Sure. I heard the budget ones, which comes from Castel, and you can build a nice organization from that money. So that's cool.
If you use it wisely, if you decide to spend it in youth, in material, in having enough people to make sure that the game day is a good thing. And
there was someone in the comments that commented a little bit back. He said, as long as companies don't look at it as a sponsorable sport, you will not get the sponsoring you want, because as we all said here, it's an expensive sport. Pads, helmets, cleats, the goggles, everything is just that expensive. And it's just culture-wise, football or American football is just not ingrained in our culture. And as long as companies and big people who have money don't see it, it hampers the growth.
Yeah, there's always going to be a roof on your growth in if you don't have the right sponsors, if you don't have the right people involved. The question is always, where does it start? Because you need sponsors, but those sponsors are going to come if your team is playing well or doing well, but you're supposed to do well because of sponsors. So it's like always going to be like,
it's a vicious circle.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle. If you don't have one, you're not gonna get the other. If the other's not there,
it's one piece of the puzzle, sponsorship.
It's not,
and I think later we'll come to all the possible improvements. But you should have someone looking around for sponsors for sure. Let's talk about it a little bit, because Kevin Bergman, he says, I've tried a lot of company in Belgium. It's always the same old thing. It's soccer, cycling, etc. Yeah, that's something that needs to change. But
the basics of sponsoring is that the company that will sponsor your team will get name recognition. But as long as there are not crowds showing up, that won't happen.
Well, if you're going to look at the lower tier in Belgium of soccer, where people are still being paid to play, it's just local local guys sponsoring. So it must be possible, but it's a hard lobby, and that's maybe like I say, it's going to be one of my things that might be able to improve. We need probably national sponsors as well.
Like for example, if we look at Germany, they're the GFL 1. It's not called the GFL 1. It's called the ERIMA GFL 1, because they are the title sponsor of the whole league. So something like that could be a possibility to make the sport grow and to give some financial influx.
Yeah, and if Franson hits the nail on the head, of course, the last few years isn't inviting for sponsors. Cancel BFL, will postpone BFL season, and now this with the BNL. 100% correct. That's why the main thing we need to learn from this is stability is needed at every level.
Yeah, and
team level, board, national level, and then
reach out in the local community as well. I think that's important too. We see the Nitros, we see the Broncos as well. I think other teams especially will do it as well. They go to local markets or like schools or whatever. I've seen Nick running around in schools trying to promote the game, trying to promote his team. So I think that's an important part as well of being a part of the community and being part of if you're in a certain part of that area, that team. You don't necessarily know the game, but you know the team. And I think sometimes we still have a lot of teams where they're not necessarily known by people that would live like literally 1 or 2 kilometers away. I think
it's true,
and that's part of the problem as well. I think.
Yeah, and it's an expensive sport, as Ryan mentioned before. You can, if you have 15 guys who buy some cleats and buy 20 jerseys, you can start a soccer team, but it's not the case with football. Let's talk about the Brussels Tiger, the last Belgian team in the BNL. Because they started this year for the first time. I think they also have some good basics there. They are also in Brussels, so they have a big recruitment ground, and they expected to fight with the same weapons, but then they enter a league where one team is importing players. A second team they played with the Rotterdam Trojans also imported players, and they feel a little bit let down, I think. And then they see all the things happening with because they're a Belgian team who was also involved in the insurance thing. They're really mad, to put it mildly, that people are messing with player safety.
As they should be.
As they should be. Yeah. One of their coaches contacted us, and it's not what they expected, I think. And they don't have any imports or any other fancy things. They just have a good team or a team which will be playing at a high level in the BAFL. Wanted to try in the BNL, but also ran into injury problems, and then they were punished for it because of the league rules.
Yeah.
And then the similar thing happened to Limburg, of course, and then they did not get punished like it so it's a little bit. I think it's a really difficult situation for the Brussels Tigers. But
what they do really good is online communication, and that's also a major knock for me to a lot of teams, and maybe as well to the both leagues. Is online community, is creating a hype, creating a buzz, and creating something that people can share. Because Brussels Tigers, they are very active on TikTok. I think every week 2 or 3 TikToks are online.
Really?
So they're very active on social media, and that's very important for a sport that is relatively unknown. If you do not share content regularly, people will not start to know sport.
Yeah. Also, Brukkertje says here, Tigers, they also have a youth team. Very important. So
awesome.
Yeah, and also just finding information sometimes.
Absolutely.
About teams, about games that happened,
or just scores.
We actively have to look for it, and we as AFCB, we can do that. We want to do that, but it shouldn't be what we should be doing, because if just a regular fan is not going to do it the way that we are going to do it, because we do it so we can get it to the regular fans, but it should be something where the regular fan can just know, just in 2-3 clicks or taps on a screen, like, BFL played this week, that team played that team, and you can have some images, whatever it may be, but communication.
It's only a couple of minutes work, not even.
And
just scores. It's not I'm just talking scores here. Both leagues post standings. Agreed, that's useful, but both leagues do not post the scores, and that should be very basic. So people go online and they're like, okay, that team played that team, that was the score. No, standings are optional to me, but scores are way more important to me.
Yeah, it's been 53 minutes, and only now has somebody said that we need to get involved more in BFL. That's not what we aim to do.
We do in terms of getting more content or communication. We do want to do that, but we want to get more. But like literally getting involved, that's something else. But if you are listening now and are part of a team, if you're part of as a coach, as a player, or whatever, you can just send us a message about whatever you want to promote, whatever you want to put out there in terms of hey, we did this, or this is something we go through, or what we want to do now, or whatever it may be. You can just literally go to us and we'll put it out. And we're willing to provide for advice as well, because we are now in a spot, I think, where we can say that we did a lot of cool things for American football. We have a lot of different content that we do, so we know a little bit of what we can do, so we can be part of that communication, not necessarily directly involved, but we can help, and we will help if we can. So I think
if we can, but it's the same. We are also volunteers.
I know, but it's just
And it's not only social media; it's a website where people, because I challenge somebody to find something on Facebook. I mean, the algorithm messes with you, and in the end, you just see a lot of reels and stuff. So shout out also to Safari Bari, one of the and his cousin Darnell maybe as well, who started
Darnell from East Safari.
Yeah. We started, of course, a lot of this, and I hope some positive comes out of it. That's what we want to take out.
I do want to, as Alain said, the LFFA posts their things on their Facebook and Instagram pages, but the problem is that it comes from the LFFA out and not out of BNL, and it doesn't of the BAFL. My apologies, and it doesn't come from a general place. So the problem is that people don't know the way to get to the LFFA posts, and it is true that the Monday or Tuesday after the games there will always be the scores of the weekend and the standings, which is a good thing that they're doing, but it needs to be streamlined. It needs to be something that needs to be more general, because the LFFA page has 400 followers, and a lot of people might not know the LFFA because they might only know the BAFL if they're new to the sport.
Yeah. We're almost an hour into this. I also want to touch on the BFL and improvement. So I'm going to talk about, or we are going to talk about a little bit about the other part of the BNL. Of course, is the Dutch part. Amsterdam Crusaders for me is the same as the Brussels Black Angels, with the difference that they have a decent field. Sorry, Robert.
Not an easy way to get to it, but they do have a great field.
Yeah. Okay, last time it was a little bit difficult, but I mean, they have a lot of homegrown players. They play with a local quarterback for years on end now. And the most important thing, which I remembered, is when I talked to Jasper Nijland, the quarterback, one time, he says, for me, the most important thing is I mean, he's already in his 30s. I need some of these guys can showcase their talents here on this field so they can get into German leagues, into foreign leagues, so they can get out of here.
Make a career out of it,
I mean, so this is why they're doing a good thing. They have good coaching staff. They have decent management as well. I mean, they will compete every year, and maybe at a level which is maybe a little bit too high for some of the teams, and that's why we see so many blowouts, which might not help get smaller teams into the BNL. That's one of the problems. I mean, and their level stays at the same level. They get 50 people on their player sheet as well, on certainly on home days. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for the Crusaders to find a team to compete with, or enough teams to compete with. I mean, right now it's 3 teams. It's the Trojans, it's the Brussels Black Angels, and the Crusaders. But you cannot have a competition with these 3 teams.
They're in a difficult spot, because I think they're one of those teams that should be part of a league that is better level of play, but there's not a league like they can join to actually do that. They can't go to Germany.
They can form an ELF team, but they would probably be the worst team in there, so they're in a tough spot.
That's one of the things happening behind the scenes right now, and we have to credit Gridiron, I think. No, maybe Sport America. Or, I don't know, not exactly sure who it was. But someone wrote about it, that the ELF is investigating and researching the possibility of Amsterdam as a possible host city, but it would not be with the Crusaders. It will be a completely different team. So
no. But if you need all the best players from Holland, because you need so many homegrown players, I mean, that's going to drain the Crusaders, but they still have enough people then, I think, to form a team which can compete in the BNL.
Then it's a team that might compete if you have certain players. But even then, I mean, it's going to be it's not going to be an easy team.
The only other opportunity that I can imagine is something like the CEFL, where you have teams playing from, there's the UK, there's Switzerland, Italy, Spain, I think as well, France. There is a league that exists for teams that want to go play on a higher level, which is not DLF already. But the problem with that as well is that you need investments. I have no idea about the physical
much
state.
money, I think.
I don't know. I have no idea about the physical states of the Crusaders, but to be able to join that, it would need a lot of work to. It's just not done in 2 days.
Somebody is there saying the same thing as you, Maxime Matteo van Heuverswijn.
Yep.
Is he family?
Written completely different. But,
okay. He says crew has to play in a liga like CELF.
Yep.
So that's basically that. But again, you need a lot of money to get that because getting a bus to drive
trips
to Brussels is one thing, or chartering a plane is something completely different.
Yeah, if you need to go play in Italy or in Switzerland, you don't take the bus for 20 hours on the way back.
I mean, the Crusaders players, they have physical specimen on so many positions. I mean, if I see their O-line, it's a scary situation, which I only see. I mean, usually when I see an O-line here in Belgium, I don't want to mention it, they're big guys, but they're big. They're not tall. If I see the Crusaders O-line, they're big and tall.
it's just
The Dutch are taller.
Also, yeah.
True. Fucking DNA.
yeah. René is the O-line coach, so.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they can play at a slightly higher level. But what level should that be? So they're a little bit of a conundrum there. Maybe one more thing about the Trojans, the Rotterdam Trojans. Also, I think a good team. But they rely a little bit on their import quarterback and import linebacker. Because last Saturday we watched the Black Angels versus the Trojans, and main difference was, and that's not a knock on the Koster, the quarterback of the Brussels Black Angels, but he hasn't played college in the United States, and the other guy did. And the guy on defense, he played D1. I mean, that's just too. I mean, it showed on the field. And that was one of the main differences. 2 guys on a football team, and it matters. I don't know if they have any good quarterbacks, but if there is a Rotterdam quarterback on the sideline, it's a pity.
In Rotterdam, what we saw is a game that they lost their starting quarterback at the start of the year, which was Timothy Morovic, who tore his ACL. The games that they played then were not well on offense. It was the moment that they got the new QB that stuff started going much better for the defense. It was the same thing. The moment that they got Colby, I forgot his last name.
Cyrus?
Number 44. No, he wasn't. He's not there anymore. Right now, he's playing in Poland already.
I don't know.
And to replace him, they got Kiki now. But it is one player, but it can make a huge difference because there's one player on the offense. You have the QB who's just
of course, it's a little bit difficult. As a spectator, it's nice to see a QB throwing a tight spiral or a linebacker getting an angle on a tackle, which you normally only see on your TV. But it's making a difference against guys who are just not on that level.
I think
it would be if everybody had those possibilities. Yes, of course. And if the Trojans have the means to do this, of course, it's within their right. So I don't knock them really for that.
Not at all. Good for them.
But I don't know if he was. I don't think those guys were sleeping in the dressing rooms.
Let's hope not. But yeah, they also have good communication. I feel like they really have.
A bunch of nice guys as well who received us there on Saturday.
Yeah. So I think they have the right stability to be a team for a long time, and that you're always gonna have certain players that come in and just be 1 or 2 levels better, especially at the 2 most important positions. I think at this level, you have the quarterback and the linebacker are the 2 most important positions at this level of football. But yeah, they're going to be fine, and I think we'll see where they end up. But they're in a less tough spot, I think, than the Crusaders.
Yeah. Maybe one more thing, they should kick their local guy from the municipality in the nuts for not giving them 10 extra yards on that field. Looks a little bit.
It looks a little bit silly,
but it works. I mean, it works. All right, that's the BNL. We're going to talk about it later, how we see the competition format, because it's a little bit of a combination, at least in my idea, between BNL and BFL. But then BAFL, so the Belgian competition, for me, it's a whole different thing. If you want to play in the BNL, you need like at least 40 players on your starting roster to start this season. 40 healthy players who will say, I want to be there every Saturday. Like between 40 and 50. That's what you need at least, so you don't have guys playing two ways. I have the feeling, Robbie, you've seen more BAFL games than me. That in the BAFL, how do I say this? It's not only about having success on the field or a W really at the end, but also for guys having fun.
I can see
everybody
what you
wants to
mean.
win. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, everybody does want to win, because at the end of the day, all these teams that are competing, they are competing hard and they are putting their best product on the field possible.
Yeah.
All the guys are doing their utmost best effort to try and get that W, but there is more of a, I'll say, communal feeling sometimes within these teams, and you can see that like playing both ways can be easier at a certain point in the BAFL as well, because sometimes the competition will not be at the same level as it would be with certain teams in BNL. It's a very nice thing. I love the BAFL, because it's a great competition. You really see local guys who try and play the best possible game that they can and try and get to those playoffs and then possibly the final as well.
Yeah. What is? Yeah, Lawrence, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, the best football player we've ever had came from just the same exact situation, from just came from the youth, being in a football family, but still came just from the Austin Tigers and just in the BAFL in the same, in that competition, and eventually now is a professional player. So you can still grow. It's not like that's the end station for guys that are going to be very good players. They can still move on, but it should be the starting ground at least.
To me, the attractiveness of the BAFL this year is that the competition seems more balanced. There is more balance amongst the teams. There are blowouts. There have been blowouts, but for example, there are the Gators, the Spartans, the Broncos, the Monarchs, the Knights. Every game is up to par to maybe not the best football, but it has some solid competition to it. As in the BNL, we've seen this year, to me, too many blowouts. And it hurts the attractiveness of the league if you have a lot of blowouts. And the BAFL this year is very balanced to me.
And tight games.
And a lot of people showing up. When I went to see the Broncos play the Pirates, I think, and another game, Spartans
Pirates, and it was Broncos. Turtles.
Back to the days when you have two games in one location.
Yeah, it was, I think, a couple of months ago, and it was in Bruges. Those stands were packed. First of all, because there are 4 teams playing, but a lot of locals as well showed up. Yeah. So that's to me.
I remember going to BFL, or I don't know what it was called back in the day, when you knew you could watch 2 games for. To the price of 1 ticket, which was €0 back then.
Oh yeah.
No, but what I think for the BFL teams, and why we also include them here is because they also need more stability. I mean, we had 2 teams, My Atomics
and the Charleroi Coal
Miners fold this year. I don't know the exact reasons, but I'm guessing roster not being big enough, and I think their BFL should also maybe get involved a little bit, or somebody. Okay, you need a certain roster size to start a season. I put the number here at 35. I don't know if that's the correct number, yes or no.
It's not easy attainable to find 35 guys who are ready for a football season.
But start the season, and then you will end the season with probably 25 guys. Like 4 or 5 of them will get hurt. Some of them will quit. Things happen, and then I think you need at least 25 guys every week on your.
Yeah, you need at least 25 to start, because if you don't have 25 to start your season, then there's a problem, because
not to start the season, but to start every game. Let's say.
Yeah, but the 35 is all. There's very many areas who are not fit, I'll call it, for a football town sometimes, but there is a good organization. There's just not enough players, and then the problem is that you can't find 35 guys.
Then I think some people should cooperate and then make 2 teams into one.
Yeah, but do people want, as someone put in the comments as well, do people want to drive 40, 50 Ks just to go to practice? Football is a game of X's and O's, of people. You have 11 offense, 11 defense. If you don't want to play both sides, that's 22 people. If you want to have a healthy team, that's probably 35, as you said, or 40. And it's just not that easy to, as Robert said, to get 35 people to play football. It's not.
Well,
it's not soccer. You have 11 players. There's your team.
Yeah, that's why we don't have so many divisions. If you don't, but my idea is if you don't have 35 guys to start a year,
don't start.
It might be not the best idea to start. Look for new players.
I think if you put that as a limit, then in the BAFL right now, I think you might have 4, maybe 5 teams out of 11 that started the season.
Okay, well, might be putting it at 30, but you need something to make sure that teams will not drop out, because it always creates a big mess in the standings, because they will have games played. What do you do with them? You just let them forfeit all the games, and but sometimes the writing's on the wall. I mean, there have been teams before. Just one name I remember, or the Waasland Wolves, I think, who've played maybe for half a season or one season. Like here, the Bruggertje ADB. He says in the comments, the Pirates started the season with 40, ended Saturday with 22. I mean, it's such a physical game. People have plans sometimes in the weekend. They cannot play all games. I mean, if you get a skiing vacation set up, you're not going to stay at home because you have to play football. Okay. I'm getting some heat on the 35. Might be 30 guys. I don't have the exact.
Told you.
I don't have the exact I don't have the exact number, but I think you should be able to. Let's put it at 30 then.
Folding already, Dirk.
That's still a lot, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're never gonna find the right. It's always going to be you're going to have teams even starting with 35 and not being able to finish.
Yeah, let's put it this way: you should end the season with 25 guys on your roster somehow.
Yeah, but how?
I don't care how many you start them with, then, but end with 25.
You're just not able to enforce that, and that's one of the issues you have. Is you can say, well, you're not going to end the season with 25, but how are you going to say stop? You need more players.
You have to think about the physical integrity of your players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you play both ways, we have only one player here who has actually been on a football field, Robert, but it's a beating, I think, if you if you play both lines or play as a wide receiver and as a cornerback. I mean,
it's a combination of the physical torture that you're taking during the game, plus the fatigue that comes with towards start of the second quarter, start of the second half, which leads to injuries.
Yeah, and which again makes things worse for the rest of your team now.
Exactly.
So, and which cuts the roster even more.
Yeah, and you're always gonna have guys who take it very seriously, and you're gonna have guys who just don't. Let me put it that way. And just gonna abuse their body on the rest of the week as well. We're doing all other types of stuff. So it's very hard to have everybody be at the same level. I think Francisco said it as well. People don't take care of the body also. So the limit, I think that's going to be tough. But you should think about how are we going to start the season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then last thing, of course, have junior teams. A lot of these, especially the Flemish teams, are doing this quite well. I have no idea how it is on the other side.
The other side.
Yeah, that's how they say it in Dutch. In Wallonia, but again, if you want to have a team next year, you better have some youth this year. So,
but let's not forget there was a BNL youth competition last year. And
there was a BFL U20 as well.
Yeah.
And Most Knights became champions last week.
Yeah.
Last week.
Yeah, of course they do have them. Yeah. And coaches, of course, this is the stability which I mentioned before, and make sure you get guys who have the commitment to come and play every week and probably next year as well. Alain Roger says here, Mons has a great youth program. They became champions, you say, Robert. So
yeah, they do have a great youth program. I think they have multiple divisions as well, like multiple age groups and stuff. So they're really doing a good job.
Yeah, if it wasn't that far away, I would. When is the BFL playoffs, Robert?
I need to check the schedule. I'll come back to you in a few minutes.
Yeah. But the playoff teams have been established.
Playoff teams have been established. You got 1 seed, you got the Turtles. 2 seed, you got the Knights. 3 is the Gators, and 4 is the Waterloo Warriors.
Yeah. So see, Flemish teams, you need some work. All right.
This is saying something interesting as well, because we've been talking a lot about the players and stuff like that. He mentions coaches as well. I mean, that's you see a lot of the teams that have a lot of stability have coaches that have been there a long time, or that we know those guys. So having people to teach the game the right way is also and making people enthusiastic about playing the game is also being a very important part, I think, of making everything a success. Because then the level is not good enough. You're going to lose games. You're going to lose players because they're not going to want to play. So coaches are also an important part of what you want to do.
As they were saying in the comments, 16th and then the 30th is the final for the BAFL. No idea where.
By the way, this is the guy with the coolest nickname so far in the comments, David Corijn Davke Tap Tap.
Also a long time player of the game, so knows what he's talking about.
I blame his parents. Sure, it's not his real name, but thanks, David, for that information. And now we get to the maybe the interesting part. Where are there possible improvements? Both here in Belgium and the BNL. For me, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
It's not about wrong.
There's a new thing in town. It all starts with flag football.
Yes,
it's an entry level. For me, I think for every semi-athletic person without a big risk of injury. It's possible for boys and girls. It's an Olympic sport in 2028. And why the hell is it not included in sports being played during PE in elementary school or high school? It maybe is in some schools, but it's a perfect sport to play. But you can play it indoors.
You get to the rules and stuff, and the problem is that it's not part of our culture yet, or maybe will never be.
Well,
so if you're going to say to a bunch of kids, we're going to play flag football, 35 of them are going to look at you and go, huh? So.
No, well, I've had my bachelor party in Amsterdam on the Crusaders field with a bunch of guys who've never sniffed out something close to football. And after half an hour, we were playing football.
No, did the same for the bachelor party of my brother as well. Like it's a perfect activity to do, and it could be a possibility, but it should be a possibility. It should be something included in PE, indeed.
And
maybe I think clubs need to look at flag football. It's not PE, or maybe we have to start that clubs have to focus on flag football and have to take it not take it seriously, but have a program. Because there have been tournaments, there have been flag football tournaments, but again, I have seen zero communication of that on social media, and it's
a little bit.
It's 6 or 7 adults who play flag football, and kids can play it as well. So it should be a very interesting entry level to the sport. Maybe not even have to play tackle. To me, it would be a perfect way for a group of friends to get to know the sport of American football by playing flag football and never have to touch a helmet or pads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brucker says every Flemish team has a flag football team.
There's quite a lot right now, but then as Rand said, there's a lack of communication. We went to
teams should have more teams. Pirates A, B, C.
Yeah, that's for example, as Kevin is saying as well, the Gators, they have started basically where everyone who wants can start a flag football team with help from the Gators. So their players, usually they'll say, okay, I live around this area, I'm going to start a flag football team. If they find enough players, they can compete. Yeah. It's something that is going to be bigger in the future. Pirates as well are doing a great job of flag football, Tribes as well, but then it comes to communication to the outside world, because I can't even remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago or last week as well, the final of all the age categories, and I don't remember who won what.
There
fact,
was?
There was. Exactly, there was.
Yep.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it, and it must not. I mean, and this is maybe not that much a knock. We're on an improvement category. Some people should take it at heart, and or we will write it down somewhere. But flag football is so important. It starts here. You can get young kids. I mean, and the cost is low compared to tackle football. You need a football. You need a kit. It doesn't have to be a football uniform. You need flags.
Or you can have like the bachelor version, just pull someone's pants down instead of
so do it that way.
That could work as well. But
yeah, and then we had an Olympian, a gold medalist on our podcast, but I can't remember his name.
Nico the Kerpel.
Nico the Kerpel, right?
Olympic champion in hockey.
Yeah, in hockey. That's where I wanted to go to. I mean, that look at that sport 20 years ago, and tell me that was part of our culture. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
it got to a very good level, one of the best levels you can play it at in just the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because just of good management, but because it was an Olympic sport.
Mhm.
And you can find people going to, always going to find people who want to go to the freaking Olympic Games.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that it's an Olympic sport should be put way higher in the hierarchy of like, hey, this might be like it's also just it's an Olympic sport, so you can grow the sport with it because it's always going to attract people because it's the Olympics.
Yeah,
I think we have to look at post 2028 then.
Yeah.
Well, we have 4 more years. I think things should be done to get that sport out of here. Out there.
Not out of here, but
Yeah, but,
Fuck
Yeah.
that.
the same. Yeah, we just don't have to do it the way
but then,
by
yeah,
the
let's
best-
say there's other things which come as improvements. Do we need to lobby for this?
For
somebody
flag
should.
football, hell yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
again, who will do it then? But we'll make a recap maybe after the podcast of things which things that might be done, that it's at least written down somewhere.
Yeah.
And then maybe
your
somebody
social
can
media
start
out
doing
there.
something with it. We've mentioned it before, so I'm not going to touch on it that much. The involvement of nationwide sponsors. This might just come after that the sport gets more recognition. And every penny which comes from a sponsor does not have to come out of the pockets of a player. So that's that, and it can cover, for example, insurance. So again, we've touched on this before, I think, the sponsorship. So, and again, yeah, do we need to lobby for this?
somebody
Maybe.
has to. A certain
Somebody
moment.
has to. Player
Somebody has to.
representation, I think, is also something we've mentioned before, and I think it's just a good idea. Then maybe more importantly, the board of the BAFL. Part of the problem right now is it's the same people involved in some clubs. And my idea there is that we should involve them people who have experience in football but are no longer involved in their own team.
I don't think it's the case for the BAFL. BAFL is not the case. I think president right now is Francis Newfom, and he's not
Okay,
with any
but
team
let's
anymore.
say BFL/FAFL.
Yeah, I think there's getting a bit better right now. I think, no, there's been some development in that, and it's getting more organized and more like independent, I'll call it.
Yeah, Francis is a good example.
He's was part of the Brussels Black Angels.
He was
now.
part of, but this year
Part of
he
that.
is not. So
Yeah, that's why I say we're preferably no longer involved in team decisions for sure.
Yep.
Because again, if money is involved and you're involved in a national board and your own team, I mean, it's bound to go wrong.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's maybe something difficult to forget about. FAFL and LFFA. My apologies. The country is too small to have two separate boards.
Or
This has been a point of discussion in the past. I know it. But it seems so silly. I mean, we're talking English today. As Dutch guys, we just might as well had a French-speaking guy here. Would have not been a problem because they probably speak English as well. So we can have some nationwide decisions. The only problem there, I think, is that sports is not a federal thing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Like, it's not sports is I don't know how to say that. It's a Flemish and
Communal. I don't know.
yeah, communal. Yeah. So it's separate. So that's always going to be some sort of issue. Shouldn't be the reason why you wouldn't do it. But have all these
This
different
country has 4 governments. I think it's more.
more like 7 or something. But that's one of the things if you tell an American, like, how many governments do you have? One. If you ask a Belgian that, we don't even know how many we have. That's one. But
Too many.
yeah. What I wanted to say
5, I
about
think.
that's one of the things. Yeah. But yeah, if you try to merge things,
It's just a suggestion, but I think those people should at least talk to each other more than they're doing today.
yeah, and I think one of the reasons why it's always going to be or why it was an issue in the past, or why it split in the past, was because of things we've been talking about today as well. Is about personal issues between certain people in the past, and so it's going to be. I don't think it's impossible, but it's going to be one hell of stuff. I mean, I think it's going to be way harder than people think because of.
Like I read here, they haven't talked to each other in years. Yeah, might be something to change.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories as well. So this has been going on for
Knock
years.
down the wall.
Yeah, they're grown men, for God's sake.
Yeah, so we have to break the 20% wall. Yeah.
Also, involvement of BAFL, no officials, no party. I admire these guys because they drive all the way from the other side of the country every week to officiate a game. Okay, they get some money for that, but their time is. I mean,
it's amazing.
Yeah, and then
much respect.
I would say if you have teams or new guys in the BAFL board or FAFL board, preferably with a business background, who can manage funds responsibly and can negotiate deals and lobby for the national interest. Those guys exist.
Transparency.
Yep.
Like I say, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some guys who've played football before and are now leading quite big companies. So they got a good set of brains. So yeah, and then okay, I think we might, or somebody should start looking for those guys instead of looking for the guys within your own teams. And then one big important thing. Guys and girls. I'm sorry, Vanessa.
Vanessa, the GM of the Belgian Barbarians, of course.
That's a great segue because the Barbarians are coming up. I think the Barbarians should be one of the most important things which comes out of this process.
Combine.
And the Junior Barbarians, of course. There's a combine coming up. There's been communication today. The Barbarians and Junior Barbarians should get on the field at least once or twice a year. To get a lot of guys together who normally only meet each other on the other side of the ball. And they've been doing that for the last few years, I think, quite good. I mean, we've seen the Junior Barbarians play. The Barbarians are coming up.
As Vanessa says, it's a work in progress. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to make sure that the teams are back in full glory, because it has been a few years that there has been no games. But I fully believe that with the management that is going on right now, I think that the Barbarians will once again be a successful organization, a successful project in the next few years, especially with the talent that we have.
Is there a Barbarians flag team? And should there be?
There is a Barbarians flag team that has played last year at the European Championship in Dublin, or at least Ireland. But I'm not sure if it was really
but it
part
was
of
probably
the whole
not the best players who were there.
No, there was no combine. It was more of a team that formed itself. I'm not even sure if it was part of the Barbarians organization itself. And it was exactly a lot of players from the coal miners who I think maybe had the idea to do it together. But that is something that has to be taken up into the organization.
Somebody write it down. Find how many players do you need on a flag team?
12 is plenty.
12 best guys in Belgium in flag football. Okay, the new Okay, Barbarians GM is doing a much better job than the old one. We're not gonna name names.
Takes time.
Yeah.
But props to the guys and girls who are involved in the Barbarians right now. Keep it up. We will support you where we can. If we have to commentate on a game, Robba, as you did before.
Much pleasure.
Yeah, if we have to travel to Spain, as Maurits did before.
Yeah.
Let's get some sponsoring involved.
Yeah, as well. And then, the national team meeting, I've also mentioned it before, that all teams should meet at least once a year to discuss some decisions made by the national board, which is another organization, to make sure everybody's on the same track. I see some frowning. I say one board member and one player from each team, they should get together once a year. I think in the NFL it even exists.
Yeah,
the owners' meeting.
Like a player representative that has to talk to the board, and vice versa.
Well,
of the club.
The BAFL, they meet on a regular. The BAFL board, they have to meet on a regular basis because they have to discuss a lot. But this national team meeting should happen once a year, in my opinion, to discuss proposals by that other national board. I don't know if you get my.
But it's national meeting for the teams. It's not national team meeting.
Yeah, no, not national team. National meeting
for all the teams.
I think, and I think it could be a cool day where you get all teams involved. You have some players there. The refs should be there as well,
or a representative of the refs.
Should be there to cover.
And then at least people are starting to talk to each other already. You have a barbecue, have some beers.
Yeah.
Some flag football.
Maybe some flag football. Yeah. And indeed, as Vanessa is saying, work on vision, mission, objectives. Vanessa seems like a good a woman in the position where she's at. And then, I mean, those are proposals. And then maybe the last thing which we want to, or the penultimate thing, the new competition format. This might be a little bit early, but I've said it before. There are only 2 teams really, or maybe 3 in the BNL, which and they cannot play each other every week.
No.
I would do either one of 2 things. Let the BAFL play all Belgian teams. Let the AFBN play all the Dutch teams. Get some standings, and then play, let's say, the top 2 or top 3, even maybe. Make them play a playoffs.
Yep.
And you will still have your BNL Bowl. You will still have your good games. Okay, not 2, but you will not have blowouts. Because as Ryan mentioned before, in the BAFL, there are, tight games every week.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's BAFL 1 or BAFL 2, if there are too many teams, then...
There has been a D1 and a D2 in the past.
Yeah, before.
There's been a development league as well, where you can just show up with a bunch of guys and say, okay, we're going to start a team and we'll see how it goes. And it doesn't matter if you have 11 players or 25. If you have to forfeit a game, you forfeit a game. There's no consequences for that.
Yeah.
That's also a possibility.
Yeah, but what happened to that?
That project, I think that all died down with COVID. The development league, I don't know. It's been a long time, but maybe there was just not enough interest at the time. But BAFL D1, D2 would make 100% sense to restart that with 6 or 7 teams per division. And then indeed you can make it some sort of Super Cup or Champions League knockout type of thing.
There are other sports where this exists. Handball, for example, they play a national competition, or they had before, and then they play the best Belgian teams against the best Dutch teams.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It makes sense to do it that
way.
It
was a very, because I've witnessed one of these games once, and they were really good games, and the Belgian and the best Belgian and Dutch teams also in this sport were worthy of each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be a direction where they could go. I'm not going to say should. It can also be a mix where you have in season some games between Belgian and Dutch teams, but then it's probably difficult to get that into a standing somehow. And as Robert, I've talked to him before about this, and as he said, if you're gonna have games which will not impact standings, people or teams will not play their best teams. No. Understandably so, because of the injury risk.
If you do want to do something like this, you can organize some type of Champions League and say, okay, or where you have the top, I don't know, maybe all the teams from first division in both countries can meet each other in the knockout stage, and then during the season you make sure that there's space for this game, for this tournament, where they play maybe 4 games each and try to get to the final. That's also a possibility, because then you have games that actually matter because they're knockouts, but you also have the national ranking.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I've had some ideas about this before, because what we want to avoid is the big blowouts. That's the most important thing. Nobody wants to witness a team getting slaughtered, not the winning team, not the losing team. So yeah, that might be something for next year. And then I have maybe one thing, which is my dream a little bit, is the involvement of the NFL in all of this.
Ooh.
Yeah, because what we are clearly lacking is a few things. That is proficient coaching, or coach to coach, let's say. So who's going to train the coaches? Like accommodations, and then equipment. And why am I saying this? But you can't just give money, because people will go to Ibiza and have a party. But with the FIFA, I mean, you can say a lot about that organization as a bunch of corrupt guys. But what they have been doing, and this is a little bit of the way how they buy votes, is in underdeveloped countries, they will go in there and provide decent pitches for the national team. They will give equipment. They will sponsor it, or the FIFA sponsor will sponsor equipment, and they will train coaches. And I always wonder why this is not possible in football. I mean, the NFL is a worldwide leading organization who has the possibility, in my opinion, to become a global, let's say, 4th or 5th biggest sport. Because of how communities are evolving now, you have it used to be like this in Belgium. The rich kids, they went to play tennis. The poor kids, they went to play soccer. And that was it. Some guys started playing volleyball or basketball, but it's marginal, or that was marginal. And I think football is a good new kid around the block. If you see how communities are built now, they're different than 20, 30 years ago. You have a lot of guys who cannot play soccer, play tennis, and they don't find their way to a football field, and they could, I think.
Yeah, and I think what Oli is saying in the comments is
they don't want to, but they should.
Yeah, I mean, they should, but I think Oli is right. I think finding that investment from the NFL, that's not going to happen. They have these NFL academies. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that is. Besides Jordan Mailata standing on a beach during the draft, I've never even seen anything of it since. I mean, what?
I'll explain afterwards.
What?
I'll explain it afterwards. No worries.
It's just not a lot of things that really come from that, I feel like. So they try to do certain things, but I'm not sure that they really want to get involved in all of that, because that's not their business model, because they have these 32 teams.
No.
And they tried. They tried with the NFL Europe, and it did not work.
I've been very close, let's say, to talking to the right people, and I want. There's guys in the NFL who their job is international development. Those are the guys who develop or who decide which country gets which team as a fan base, for example. And the name is Peter O'Reilly. When I was in Vegas for the Super Bowl, they had a presentation for international press, and I couldn't ask him my question because I didn't get appointed. But he seemed like a guy who they are open to more development, and if you can, you have to convince them with one thing, and that's money. If you can convince them that the money they will invest in teams here in Europe can return on investment somehow in more subscriptions for people who will start watching the NFL, I think they will be there. But still, we have to say the number of people watching NFL here in Belgium is really small.
Yeah, but I think it's a good idea, whether it's NFL, whether it's IFA, whatever it is. But it is a good idea to have something above everything that is investing, and really finding spots where, oh, this is a place where we see some development, but they need some help, whether it's financial, whether it's coaching, whatever, and that being stronger in helping those teams, or whatever it may be, players, coaches. That's a good idea, though.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. But the money is in the NFL. I think I've made a calculation. Even if they would put 0.1% of their revenue to development,
0.1 of their revenue.
Yeah,
How much is that? Like, that's
10
a lot.
million?
It's more. I mean, I think their revenue is 30 billion or something, and then you have to divide it by 1,000. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, they threw $100 million at Tottenham to build their stadium with.
Yep. And they're doing the same thing in Madrid to help it be.
Yeah, but that field was already there. I think when the Tottenham stadium was actually built, the NFL invested in having that field. So it's crazy.
No. Christoph, I know what revenue is not profit.
I think that is pretty. Yeah,
but still, I mean, you have to calculate. I think somehow. I mean, they're making so much money, and they're lining their own pockets, and that's of course the USA way of doing things.
That's
but it only takes one guy to convince, I think, because it's also quite a small organization at the top.
Yeah, that Peter O'Reilly guy, I've heard about him as well. He's one of those guys that is really involved in getting it bigger and bigger and bigger. But yeah, he runs into the same problems, I think, than a lot of guys in all types of.
We should get a Belgian guy or girl in the NFL Europe. And he has to move to London, then I think.
NFL Europe, but
yeah, the organization NFL Europe. They're still. Yeah, they're based in London. A few guys working for them.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're into 1 hour and 42 minutes of the podcast. I think we have to wrap up. What we will do, the things that we've discussed here, I think, or that we should do, we haven't decided yet. We will write an article on afcbelgium.com. And on our website, please visit it. There might be a few guys who are here for the first time. Thank you for listening and watching and giving your comments. We couldn't put all of them on screen. My apologies. There were a lot. I think it was a good discussion that we had here.
Yeah,
a healthy discussion.
A healthy discussion. Some things which should be named are named. We didn't get into all the juicy details, but I don't think that's really necessary. So yeah, I want to thank you guys, Lawrence, Rein, Robbe, and also Frans.
Pleasure.
I hope you had a good time. A little bit.
Always do.
For those listening, we will be back with a regular podcast somewhere in August, I think, or some other things might happen in between that we put out a small podcast.
Over time, we'll be back. No worries.
Yeah. Okay. And we will be in Easy Game on Saturday to watch the Nitro's last game of the season against the Trojans, I believe it is.
Yep.
And then, Robert, we should visit some of the BAFL playoffs.
We should.
If you don't have any finals on those.
I'll try to find a moment in my schedule to make sure that we go by and make a little.
And then Vanessa, the new GM for the Barbarians, we should share that information about the combine that as many people as possible will pop up.
We'll do as well.
All right.
And, maybe for the last thing, on the AFC Belgium side, the next few weeks, I've written a piece about all the different teams in all 32 NFL teams, my favorite moves. It's also in English. I've translated everything in English. It's in Dutch, so you can find that while seeing other stuff on the side. But the next few weeks, we'll have that running. as well.
Yeah, that's the last thing then. Support AFCB. We don't ask for money, but listen to our podcast, like our stories, watch our Facebook, watch our Instagram, watch our TikTok. Sometimes even we'll put out things on Twitter and spread the love for the football game. Thank you for listening or viewing, and you will hear or see us again next time. Thank you.